You're listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers.
Your movie Passage. Tell us, because it's an award-winning movie, and parts of that movie that I watched, I'm going to talk about in a minute. See if you bring it up. I was like, that's fucking cool. I think you know what I'm talking about. So what's the theme of it? It was a Red Bull project.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that I had envisioned, honestly, for as long as I can remember in my career. Like, just wanting to tell this story of my family and our history in the sport of skiing, starting with my grandfather, who was a Swiss mountain guide in Chamonix in the 50s, and he moved to Banff and started the first outdoor gear shop in Banff at the time, and my dad and my uncles, they took it over, and they were also professional skiers, as well as my aunt, and just how skiing's been in our blood, and it's just been passed down in our DNA, and it's so much more than a sport. It's just like a way of life for my family, and I really wanted to speak towards that, and then at the same time put together some of the best skiing that I could. And we definitely had some trials and tribulations throughout the 2 years filming, for sure. But the end...
Was it originally a 1-year project, but then COVID made it a 2-year project?
Yeah, which was an absolute blessing in disguise. Like, it was... I've learned so much from filming this thing and being so involved in it. And I look back, I'm like, wow, that should have been a 2-year, like, right off the bat, just because it's worthy of that. And to do it right, I think we definitely needed those 2 years.
Because of like, putting together the story. Because it isn't a ski porn film. Like, no. There's fucking some sick skiing. That one line that you skied near the end, with the snow cascading up the side, that was sick.
That was a good one. Hoji made that famous.
So anyways, there's skiing in it, but it's more of like just storytelling, right?
Absolutely.
And then, like, do you find it was hard? You needed the more time for the story, or did you needed more time for the skiing?
Both.
Oh yeah.
Both. Yeah. I mean, it's just something that you can only tell once in your career. So I wanted to do it right, and I definitely took a chance on it with working with a crew I've never been out with, and it was honestly like the wildest 2 years of my career. It was so fun, and such highs and such lows and everything in between, but we had like the time of our lives, and I'm so happy with how it all turned out.
There's a scene in there that you go ski this really rad couloir with your dad, and I got goosebumps watching that. I'm like, that has to be quite possibly the coolest thing ever to be able to share that moment with, like, your dad, and the way that it came out. Like, I watched that and I'm like, oh my God, that's so awesome. Like, that was the standout part of the whole film for me, to be honest.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, I mean, the best day I've ever had in the mountains.
Yeah.
Like, hands down. It was so cool. I couldn't even believe my dad. I didn't have expectations for the day. I definitely, like, set the objective pretty high.
So did you tell him, like, hey, we're gonna go do this? And he's like, oh.
Yeah, I downplayed it a little. I'm like, we're gonna go ski and film. My dad's never, obviously filmed or been in front of the camera, but he's a true born entertainer. Like, he's just super personable and funny, and he loved it. And we like got to the base of the couloir, and I'm like, that's what we're shredding, Dad. And he just, like a champ, threw on his crampons, and we just did it one step at a time.
He was just like, oh, all right. Was he like, what? What are you getting
Not
into?
at all.
No?
He was, like, fully on board, and I just, like I said, set no expectation. I was just like, if we make it, if we top out, we top out. That's great. If not, then that's okay too. We'll see what happens here. And sure enough, like, he was so on fire. Like, I'd turn around, he'd be right on my tails the whole time, and then when we actually shredded the thing, it was insane. Like, I followed him, and I truly, I couldn't keep up. Like, I was, like, huffing and puffing. Like, my quads were burning, like, 10 out of 10. I was kind of hoping he'd, like, pull over and we'd regroup, but he just, like, sent the thing.
And you're just like, I got to keep up to him because this is awesome, but also I got to get the shot.
Yeah, totally. Well, that was, like, a huge learning curve, too, because we unfortunately didn't get the right permits, and we were in a park. So we have this insane drone footage.
But you weren't allowed to fly the drone.
We flew the drone.
But you weren't allowed to?
We weren't allowed to use the footage that we got with the drone, which was, like, honestly, it's the best shots I've ever gotten. Like, we're like flies on the wall. The drone like reveals this beautifully aesthetic couloir in the Rockies. It's just like I would be stoked to ski that thing for a film part, let alone with my dad kind of thing. And like the shots we have on the drone are like, honestly, absolute bangers. 10 out of 10. We couldn't use any of them.
Is there any way that you can get to use them? Like,
we tried. It was kind of one of those things, like, do it and then beg for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I
didn't beg hard enough.
I gave that plea, and they were like, no, like, you're an idiot. You should have had your permits in. And you know, it was no one's fault. It's like a tricky thing because you have to put these permits in months in advance, and you have to name the exact days that you're going to shred it months in advance. And that's a hazard. Like, I'm not going to say a month out, I'm going to shred it on this day. Like, well, the hazards could be really high that day.
And you may not be able to ski it, right?
And we may not be, in hindsight, we should have just put the permit in and done it through the books. But,
and then been like, yeah, that was the day.
Yeah.
Just go into the camera and adjust the date.
Exactly. But, you know, you live and you learn. And I think that's, CK9 and I, like, we all learned so much from filming my project.
You've been listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. This has been a Redmark Media production.